When I woke up in the hospital, I was wrapped up from head to toe like a mummy. I remember the helicopter blades. I remember the fire. I remember everything. 10 days in a induced coma, and I woke up in an environment I didn't recognize. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I want to share a little bit about my special needs son, James. James had a stroke before he was even born. That's the part of the brain that controls the fine motor skills of the body. As James was getting older, he wasn't advancing hardly at all. My wife and I decided to take him to a doctor's. By 3 years old, the doctor's diagnosis: he's not going to walk, he's not going to talk. Get him a walker and teach him sign language. I knew right then, if I did that, James was going to rely only on the walker and sign language and not develop the skills he's going to need to grow. That news spooked my wife so bad that she just left, leaving me a single dad of a special needs child. That's when my desire was to get James stronger through movement. We began by soft sand walking at the beach. He was a little guy then, and I could walk him along the beach and gently push his feet along the beach. And by going there every day, almost every day, he got stronger. We're able to expand our distances and even graduated to some sand dunes. On the bigger sand dunes, I would put him in four-wheel drive and I'd push his little bottom up the sand dune. And then as we're going down, I'd hold him like a puppet and walk him down. I always tried to time our beach walks so that they ended by sunset. At the end of a 2-mile beach walk, we'd sit on top of the dune and watch the sun go down over the ocean. And I'd hug him from behind, and we'd sit there and watch the sun go down, and we'd say, "Good night, son. See you in the morning." By 5 years old, I introduced James to swimming. My style was just to put a vest on him, a water floating vest, put him in the pool, and watch him float. At first, he would just move his arms around like a little turtle. But eventually, he learned how to move, even learned how to swim, well, sort of. He would do this with his dog paddle with his arms, and like a frog scissor leg kick, but it was enough to make him float. That's when I added lap swimming in public pools as part of our routine. That led us to jet skiing every Sunday morning in the ocean. James was still little then. He'd sit in front of me with his hands in front of me, and we'd jet ski. As he got bigger, I'd put him behind me, and he'd hang onto my vest, and I was able, if we got into rough waters, I could capture his arms. One day I got the idea. I thought, he's ready. I'm going to put the learning key in the jet ski. What that does is lowers the power by 30%. That's why it's the learning key, less power. Put him in front, and I'll put the motor engine kill switch hooked to me. If I fall off, the jet ski goes dead, and it'll be safe. He's driving the jet ski now, and I can see his shoulders are up. His confidence is up. Sorry. Anyways, I could see his cheeks. He was so proud, and I was so proud too. All this activity was helping James physically, but it was also helping him with his speech. What they didn't know, and I don't even know if they know now, but they know that swinging and creating that inertia force helps the speaking ability improve. It improves your speech. So everything we did, if we were out jet skiing, I'd be going left and right, up and down. If we were on bike ride on the tandem bike, creating that inertia feeling. We did so much together. There was plenty of opportunities for speech and several hours of private speech lessons. But James was advancing. James was between worlds. He wasn't so special needs, but he wasn't typical enough to be with the regular kids either. But so what? Between the jet skiing, bike rides, ocean swimming, beach walks, we had a ball together. I even went to the place of getting one of those enormous jungle gyms from Costco. It was the biggest one I could find. Thank God for vaulted ceilings. It was huge. It had slides and swings and tubes and all that. And I was on that with him nightly. But one of our favorite things to do was dune buggying in the Mojave Desert. We would go 3 or 4 times a year, probably for 15 years. If we didn't have dirt in our teeth, and if our butts weren't sore, we didn't drive enough. I would measure how much fun we'd have by how much fuel we used. If we were using a lot of fuel, we must be having fun because we're doing a lot of driving on the dune buggy. I didn't realize that this would be the beginning of the end. One day, I remember this clearly. One moment, we're just leaving camp, driving our dune buggy in the dune buggy. The next moment, our buggy was engulfed in flames due to a broken fuel line. I barely escaped. James didn't make it out. There are no words to describe that moment. Watching helplessly, I went into shock. My mind couldn't process what was going on. So I just started saying, he's gone, he's gone, he's gone. Because for me, James wasn't just my son, but he was my whole world at that time. When the EMTs arrived, I could see fear in their eyes when they looked at me and the situation. They weren't prepared for what they saw. I had third-degree burns over 50% of my body. I looked like a char-broiled, blackened piece of chicken. First thing they did is put me in a compression gurney, because when the body gets burned that bad, it expands to protect itself. As they're wheeling me to the helicopter, I looked over at James. One last time, that image stayed with me. To this day, it still does. When I went into the helicopter, the medic hooked me up to the IV and he said, "Mr. Clevenger, you're not going to remember any of this." I looked at him, said, "Bet I will." And I did. When we landed at the hospital, first thing the doctors did was put me in a coma and sent me to the Grossman's Medical Center in West Hills, California, one of the best in the world. Burn care is a special kind of care. It's not gentle, it's not quick, and it's not easy. The first thing they did was take all the bandages off that had fused to my already burnt skin. Even with pain meds, it felt like fire all over again. 3 weeks in the hospital, and I had to know what I was up against. So I talked to the head nurse, and I asked him, I said, "How long am I going to be here?" He says, "Well, you've got a series of surgeries. We're going to have to take all your burnt skin off of your body and replace it with healthy skin on other parts of your body." I said, "Well, how long is that going to take?" He says, 4 to 6 months. I said, "Well, when am I going to be back to work?" He said, "Well, with a good attitude and determination, 9 to 12 months. I looked at my imaginary watch on my wrist and said, "I'm self-employed. I don't have that kind of time. What do I need to do to get out?" He continued, "You're also going to have to learn to feed yourself, potty yourself, and walk again." Walk? I've been walking since I was 2. But he was right. The body atrophied so bad, I really did have to learn how to walk again. I had 7 surgeries in 6 weeks. I was home in 9 weeks. Inspired by rock music, my recovery was in 3 stages. The first stage, I label it as desire. Every time I went into surgery, I always heard this song by Ozzy Osbourne, Desire. It was just kind of a driving tune, and it just gave me drive to go in, because I knew every surgery was one step closer to getting out. The next stage was movement. When I got home, my skin was tight, stiff, felt like a permanent sunburn. I did not know how to move in this new body. And I was listening to another group, Saint Motel, and the message was simple: move. And I go, that's what I got to do. So I started walking around the block. Then I was on the bicycle machine, working out, and eventually into ocean swimming early in the morning. That healed me on so many different levels. The shock of the cold water, being in the ocean while the sun is coming out, having an occasional dolphin or seal go by. It reminded me how beautiful life really is. And movement became my medicine. The third stage was meaning. I was still trying to get my head around the accident and what happened. And I'm working out again, and I'm listening to a rock song, a group called Rat. And the message, the song was, "Nobody rides for free." And it hit me. Life has a risk. Dune buggy has a risk. Raising a special child on your own was worth the risk. Nobody rides for free. I was talking to my neighbor, a former boxer, and I'm telling him what happened in the fire, the loss of my son, the painful recovery, the grief I was going through. And he listened calmly, and he said something that changed everything for me. He said, life is like boxing. It's not how many times you go down, it's how many times you get up. You haven't heard the bell yet. That line became a lifeline for me. He was right. I wasn't done. I haven't heard the bell yet. I lived through a fire that took everything away from me except my will to go on. So decide to get up one more time. You're still in the fight. The bell hasn't rung. Find your desire, move on that desire, and remember, nobody rides for free. I didn't choose the fire, but I chose who I became from it, and so can you. Thank you.